How's it going, guys, and welcome to this best of 3 showdown between myself and JanetOnOccasion. So this best of 3 took place in the Shadow Online Gaming YouTubers Tournament, and there will absolutely be a link to Janet's channel as well as Shadow Online Gaming's channel where you guys can follow all of the details regarding the tournament. So for my army composition, in the front line, I do have a combination of Chaos Marauders who are going to be on the outskirts of my formation. And the reason I do this is because, number one, they have shields, so if there's like Dark Riders with repeater crossbows or other skirmisher units, I like to really get the Marauders just to screen them out and chase them and basically just waste their ammunition. And on top of that, these bad boys do have 35 movement speed. And I think regular Chaos Warriors and Chosen, it looks like 28 here, 28. Damn, they're really slow. Let's go look at some of these Dark Elf troops. So it looks like Corsairs have 40. So most of their troops are like over 33. But anyways, Marauders on the outside to get up around the opponent's formation. And for the rest of my front line, I'm going to be mostly Chosen with great weapons. So you guys have probably been seeing a bit of a rise in Chosen play, and that's because, in my opinion, they're pretty damn good. 48 melee attack, 46 melee defense, 50 weapons rank base. So there's no conditional modifiers like Frenzy or martial prowess, and these guys do some good work. So they can take out Harganeth Executioners, they can get through Corsairs, they can cut through Chaff relatively quickly, and I just think they're a pretty strong pick. So we got two of those, Chaos Warriors in the middle, and that's pretty much it there. For our leadership, we do have Kolek as well as a Dragon Ogre Shaggoth, which can deal with Black Dragons, they can deal with Hydras, they can deal with Malekith on the Raptor, Marathi. Just a very strong, probably the most competitive, I wouldn't say in every single matchup, but probably one of the more competitive Lord and Hero compositions for Chaos. And of course, I know it's probably not a lot of fun to watch this type of play over and over, but again, this was a tournament series. We were playing to try and get to the finals, so I do think this is going to be the more optimal way. But don't worry, plenty of meme builds on the way. Over here on the outside, we do have a group of Chaos Knights with Lances who are going to be supported by some Hounds, and they're going to be joined by a Deathcaster with a standard kit. And then over here in the forest, I think I had one more group of Chaos Poison Warhounds, and pretty good against like Dark Shards and just missile units in general. And even if Chaos Warhounds don't have any good targets, you can just sit them behind your opponent's army and wait for routing troops and then feast on them from there. So for Janet's army, it does have a War Hydra, and Hydra with its breath attacks and good AP could potentially be a pretty good counterpick against Chosen, getting in there. And as you guys know, Chosen aren't immune to psychology, so they actually can be terror-routed by this bad boy. If I'm not mistaken, let me make sure that wasn't something that got changed, and no, they're not. For his front line, combination of Dread Spears, he does have a couple Blackheart Corsairs, so it looks like he's not going to be going heavy in the front line. Rather, he's going to be trying to net value from these Dark Shards and Handbows, and more Dark Shards here in the back. Witch Elves here, a bunch of cross Dark Air. I'm just totally out of it right now. The Black Art Corsairs with Handbows, so it's going to be pretty hog wild. He's going to need to get some really good value from this War Hydra and the Dark Shards. Otherwise, his front line will probably be overwhelmed by the Chosen. So without further ado, guys, let's get this show on the road. So right now, you can see the Chaos Forces are going to be advancing. Kolek and his bro just kind of testing the corner formation. Janet does actually have some Dread Spears here with Chevron, so I don't want to be engaging into those guys. And I did see a little bit of a blob right here, but unfortunately Janet was paying attention, and he's able to dodge that pretty quickly. In the meantime, the Dark Shards are going to start shooting into the Chosen with great weapons, and it will definitely do some heavy damage. Janet has also placed his Corsairs on the flanks just to deal with my Marauders and also fend off these Chaos Poison Warhounds if need be. So over here, I do have my Chaos Knights and Hounds kind of coming in here, and I do have the Chaos Knights with Lances, so I was kind of planning on cycle charging. But Janet reacts fairly quickly, gets the Witch Elves back here, and of course the Hydra's ready, so I didn't want to commit to that and get rampaged by those Witch Elves, even though it seems to take a little bit longer. In the front, you can see the Chosen are going to be coming into a bunch of Dark Shard fire, but once they do get in there, they should be able to chop up these Corsairs fairly quickly. Chaos Warriors will also be fighting Corsairs in advantageous frontline engagement, and up here, the Dark Shards don't have the best line of sight on this group, although they did get some good fire initially, but these Chosen will massacre these Spearmen. So over here, what I ended up doing is getting my Marauders. I have them collapse on the Corsair Handbows here, and he does intercept with Witch Elves, which honestly is a trade I'll gladly take. Witch Elves aren't going to trade very well. I mean, obviously they will beat Marauders because of better stats and their rampage mechanic and the melee attack debuff, which actually let's go ahead and check what that is. I'm trying to remember what the Madness of Cain is. Yeah, maybe we'll check later in the battle. But anyways, I get some Hounds around the back. I poison the Witch Elves as well, which is going to make my Marauders much more effective. Over here is definitely the more important fight, so my Chaos Knights do come right into these Handbows right here. They're going to do some pretty substantial shock damage. My Poison Hounds are coming up and around the back, and I figured I was going to get caught here with the Rampage, so I'm like, I'm just going to commit to this. I'm going to pull in my Shaggoth, and it looks like there's going to be a Chill Wind going down from Malekith on his Velociraptor, which is lurking somewhere. It looks like he's right here, and I think Kolek actually did lay a bit of a whooping on him. Regardless, a really good Gaze of Malice by JanetOnOccasion here is going to be punishing my Warhounds, but we were able to actually rout off those Blackheart Corsairs. They're broken, I think, due to terror. But Kolek's coming in right now, and obviously the Hydra. I personally think the Hydra should have been more in the middle, like fighting with the Chosen, and if I tried to get the Hydra with some of my, big heavy hitters like the Shaggoths, they would have to get through Spears and also take Dark Shard Fire. But it's very isolated out here in the open. Spirit Leech going down, the two Shaggoths with their anti-large bonus are just going to be laying an absolute smacking on this War Hydra. And it's looking pretty good over here. Bounce Bar is still even. My Chaos Knights right here are just trying to find a home. But Janet does have a pretty scary firing line here. He does have 2 Corsairs as well as Dark Shards who are doing some very, very good damage to my Chaos Knights. In the front line, a very atrocious trade here, and you can see that these Chosen actually took a ton of damage. Obviously, the Corsairs probably didn't do a lot of that, but this Dark Shard group was just sitting on the high ground with a very good arc of fire and was basically just shooting at them the entire time. But regardless, even with that, being said, the Chosen still fought through these Black Orc Corsairs and did pretty good. Up on the high ground, it was an absolute massacre. These Chosen were able to just push through these chaff spears right here, and you can see they're just littering this valley right here, or just this little, I guess, pit, you could say. And the Chosen are going to be pushing through into the back line, so the Chaos Knights do collapse. You get an okay charge on these Corsairs, but still there's spears coming, and there's a bunch of Dark Shards and a lot of pressure coming in, so it's still, the support of the Chosen here is going to be very, very necessary. So they get into the back line. This is kind of going to be the beginning of the end. The Chaos front line, it actually traded pretty well with that Dark Shard fire for Janet. But once these Chosen got through, and of course the Hydra got beaten down by Kolak and his Shaggoth son, and then I used the Deathcaster to just chase him off the battlefield. Of course, if the Hydra had been able to regenerate and come back here, Janet still has quite a few troops left, but I don't think he's going to have the stopping power to deal with the Shaggoths. Kolak's in really good shape. You can see this Dragon Ogre is just basically hunting down Malekith. Malekith, could put up a good fight, but the Dragon Ogre does have anti-large and higher weapon strength, so he'll probably be able to win that fight. Here the Chaos Knights have piled in. There's a couple Dread Spears and stuff, so not the greatest situation for them, but at this point the bounce power is so heavily in my favor, and if a single terror route goes off on these guys and they end up routing, it's probably going to be GG. So over here you can see my Deathcaster. Janet's actually trying to get Malekith on his Velociraptor and go after him, but you can see Dad's coming in the background. He's home from work, he's pissed, and he's coming in, and he's probably going to get some pretty good work here on Malekith, because I think one more Spirit Leech does go down. And the Chosen are back here now. They have 51 models. They've pretty much cleaned up all the Dork Elves. They've cleaned up all the Dark Elf forces. And that's going to be all she wrote for Game 1. So let's go ahead and take a look at the breakdown, guys, and see what's going on. So the Chosen obviously pretty solid, 139 and 55, even with heavy focus fire on them. So I was very happy. And of course, the Dark Elves, do they have access to traditional Lore of Death? I don't think so. I think Barathi gets like Spirit Leech. Or no, she doesn't even get Spirit Leech. I can't remember if they have a Deathcaster. I'll have to check. But regardless, the Chosen are pretty safe in matchups in which there's no Fate of Buna. But I was pretty happy with that. Shaggoth did well, of course, taking out the heroic targets, punishing the Hydra, which, is a big investment. And then also the Chaos Knights with Lances did a pretty good job just running amok. 157 kills against, any elf faction is going to be pretty substantial. But for Janet's army, I liked it in the front line. Personally, I do like a couple Harganeth Executioners. The Dark Shards were good. Witch Elves, I know people have been using Witch Elves a lot, like in matchups in which you wouldn't think they're good, so I need to explore that a little bit more. But handbows are pretty good in terms of skirmishing, but I'd probably cut a handbow. The Hydra, Janet and I were talking in between games, and he was saying it was just a bit of an experimental thing. But I don't know about the Hydra. I think the repeater crossbow, so you could get like a couple Dark Riders and then get some repeater crossbows, and you just avoid the Chaos Knights, and then when the Hounds try and catch the repeater crossbows, you just take them out with a little bit of magic support in the Dark Riders, and then you get really good repeater fire, which can take out Shaggoths and work pretty well in Chosen and Knights and whatnot. But it was definitely a cool army, and look forward to Game 2 here. So thanks again for watching, guys, and we will see you in just a minute. And now we are back with Game 2 in this Best of 3 series between myself and JanetOnOccasion. So in this match, we're going to have a showdown between the Greenskins led by Azag the Slaughterer. We're going to be facing off against old Khazrak One-Eye, and I actually think he's going to be riding on his Pimp Chariot. So let's go ahead and take a look at the army. So in the front line, I do have a couple groups of Black Orcs, which honestly I've said, and you guys are probably tired of hearing, but I really think they're one of the more cost-effective infantry units in the game. They're rocking 50 weapon strength, pretty low defensive stats in terms of their melee defense, but having immunity to psychology is really, really nice. Chosen don't have it. I don't know if Harganeth Executioners have it, but regardless, it's definitely something that, can be an issue for the Greenskins. Early in Game 1, when I used to play with a lot of Orc boys and, Savage Orcs and things like that, I would experience these really traumatic, mass routes. But I feel like Black Orcs are just such a good anchor for any Greenskin army. I have two big bosses here, so one on a Spider, one on a Wolf. So the Wolf one is kind of nice to have because he has 92 speed, and this guy only has 78. So if you're able to break something and you really want to make sure it doesn't come back to the battlefield, I think having one on a Wolf is not a bad idea. On top of that, two groups of Orc Biggins on the outside. So something I've been seeing quite a bit, and I'm sure you guys have as well, is if you see a very heavy Minobus build, so it uses Chaos Spawn and Minotaurs and just tries to bull rush your front line, it's invaluable to have these guys, because Biggins with their anti-large and pretty good combat stats can cut through Minotaurs, they can cut down Chaos Spawn, and have decent leadership to boot. So this is going to be the X factor in this build here. So I have two Doomdiver catapults. So a lot of people that play the Beastmen, myself included, usually expect an Arachnaut Queen because it's so good against Beastmen infantry. And the only really real way the Beastmen have of dealing with the Queen is, of course, Gorbals and Centaurs with throwing axes. So a lot of times people will commit very heavily. They'll bring great weapons, they'll bring a bunch of throwing axes, and I feel like the Doom Divers make a pretty decent counter to those units, because if you could just fend them off and keep them from getting on the Doom Divers with nasty Skulkers, you know, these things over the course of a long battle can just work down these Centaurs, kind of gets rid of the advantage they have with their mobility, and really pays for itself. On top of that, 2 groups of Forest Goblin Spider Riders, so they have good enough stats and poison, and they can honestly fend off Centaurs with great weapons. They are very good at rear charging infantry and archers, and just pretty much a good all-purpose unit. So we do have 2 of those. Azag, of course, has his standard kit, and that's going to be it from our army. For Janet, he does have Centaurs with great weapons right here. He has some Poison Hounds. On top of that, more Poison Hounds, 2 of the Throwing Axes, which are very good against Black Orcs, and also one of the only answers they have that's really efficient against the Arachnoid Queen. So I like this quite a bit from Janet. In the front line, Centaurs, Gore Herds, a bit of a low tier front line, but it's going to be supported by Razor Gore Chariots as well as Khazrak. So the front line just made to kind of made to sustain here, and the Razor Gores and Khazrak are going to be doing most of the heavy lifting. He does have a Gorbel back here. He has Khazrak, like I said, Razor Gore Herd, and he does also have a Beastcaster. So the Beastcaster is going to have a Flock of Doom, and looks like that might be it. So without further ado, guys, let's jump right into this match and party. So over here you can see that Janet's going to get some pretty good Throwing Axe fire on my Black Orcs right here, so definitely a very good initial pick. But the Doom Divers are also retaliating. So even though he's skirmishing with me, you can see the Doom Divers, the lads are coming in. They're coming in hot. Let's see how they do. Just crashing right into those Beastmen, taking out a couple models. And I really feel like they're a pretty solid counterpick against these troops, already netting some really good value, although Janet did also get some great value against the Black Orcs. So the Black Orcs have collided into the front line with the Beastmen troops, and honestly, this very tattered group of Black Orcs here, considering how heavy their armor is probably going to be able to 2v1 these troops. Over here, it looks like these Gore Herds are going to be led by it looks like Gorbel, yeah, and the Gorbel, and the Chariot is also coming in here, but that's what Forest Goblin Spider Riders are for. They are, in my opinion, a very good hard counter to Chariot play. They have poison, they have good enough mass to pin the Chariots in place, and with the support of like Wa and other Greenskin magic, these guys can just be absolute world beaters. So in the front, I get a pretty nice pin. You can see Azag is obviously a much better duelist than Khazrak, especially when he's on his Chariot. So we get a Spirit Leech, a really good charge, poison attacks. We're able to bring him down to like half health right out of the gates. So in the meantime, some of Janet's poison, well, actually they're just regular Chaos Hounds. They do get in the back, and I was a little bit slow to react, unfortunately, but I had defensive resources nearby. So the nasty Skulkers with their stock, of course, will pop in here and get on these Poison Warhounds. But over here is definitely a very important battle. So if you look on the outskirts right here, Janet had a very big force. So 2 groups of Centaurs with great weapons, and then also some Chaos Poison Warhounds. So it looks like he was trying to get up and around here. So what I do is, of course, focus them down with the Doom Diver catapults. I get my own Forest Goblin Spider Riders to kind of pin them down, and I was able to catch them with the big uns. So the big uns are going to chop down a ton of these guys and definitely net me a lot of value, whereas all I really lost was 1 group of Forest Goblin Spider Riders who could potentially come back. So over here, my nasty Skulkers are able to use their Smoke Bomb on these Poison Warhounds, putting their speed down to 23, which is going to allow my big uns to kind of catch up to them, do a little bit of work. In the main fight, yeah, you can see that it looks like Azag and 2 of these Goblin Big Bosses are going to be fighting against Papa Gorbel, trying to work him down, and Khazrak, in the meantime, has begun to hide amongst his Throwing Axes, which is probably going to be a pretty good bet. And what is this? What is this witchcraft? I think a Faded Boon is going to be going down there. But we're starting to work down the Gorbel. Azag, of course, is very strong. 480, 50 melee attack and poison. And, of course, does have Spirit Leech if need be. But the Goblin Big Boss is also applying poison. And this Gorbel is just getting massacred by this Goon Squad right here. So down, did you guys see that? He just, like, flatlined right there. What was that? He was, like, in this, like, stance, like, trying to fight back and just all buggy, just falling over, which is pretty great. A nice Flock of Doom going down from Janet, hitting my Black Orcs. Spider Riders definitely going to be very solid. But the biggest issue for Janet isn't the front line. The front line's actually a little bit close. Black Orcs are still fighting. You know, he has Razor Gores and Chariots over here. Khazrak and the boys are doing well. Although I guess my big uns are coming in, so I probably still have the advantage in the front line. But again, the big issue being is that the Doom Diver catapults are just going to be teeing off on everything. I just have them shooting at Gore Herds, and every time the Centaurs come back, you can see these brave lads. And where did he go? There he goes. He's up in the sky. Yeah, there goes my hero. Just flying in and hunting down these Centaurs in the back. So, you know, I was a little bit nervous about the Doom Diver pick initially, but it ended up being pretty solid. And the nasty Skulker protection here, I just kind of parked these Rusty Arrows in the back here, just having them, you know, provide a little bit of support, and just using Azag and my mobility with the nasty Skulkers and the Forest Goblin Spider Riders. Well, I guess my debuff for nobility to kind of protect my back line. So he does get into those goblins here, but I should have my nasty Skulkers to clean up, and of course Azag can simply roll back there and deal with them pretty quickly. So the Doom Diver catapults are just shooting in on the Baconators of my opponent. You can see Janet does have some Baconators, Razor Gore Herds, who do have 19 kills. They're one of those units that I can't seem to, you know, kind of like Feral Cold ones. It's hard to kind of find a home for them, in my opinion. But anyways, right here you can see that Khazrak One Eye was in the open a little bit, and of course Azag's coming in here with the 2 goblins. That's pretty much all, you know, going to be all she's wrote for Khazrak. Maybe he'll get away on his pimp card. Man, he just put the moves on me. So he runs through. Janet does use as his chariots right here. It looks like they're going to come in here just get monster mashed by Azag, but nonetheless they're going to be able to buy some time for Kazrak to kind of scurry back to his formations. But the Doom Divers are still fighting, and it looks like the Centaurs with great weapons have been fended off by the nasty Skulkers, and they're still online. And let's see how their ammo is. Yeah, they have a ton of ammunition. So if this fight had gone to a really long atrocious point, they would have been able to net a lot of value. So the Centaurs right here just kind of parking. You can see some point-blank lad fire coming into. The lads are ready, just crashing into these Centaurs. We do have a Goblin Big Boss chasing them down, as well as Overwatch fire from the Rustiers, which is going to be very, very solid. And at this point, it's pretty much just Kazrak versus the world. There's a caster in here as well in his chariot, but obviously surrounded by Biggins and a bunch of anti-large troops, and of course world beaters like Azag. It's going to be all she wrote for the Beastmen. So let's go ahead and take a look at the breakdown. Very well played to Janet. So I will indeed be moving on to the finals of Shadow Online Gaming's YouTubers tournament. So you guys will absolutely see that here on the channel. So anyways, I'd like to build quite a bit, and I feel like it was a bit of a mind game build. Like, had Janet not prepared for the, the spider and had gone with Bestigors and a more traditional, not traditional, I don't know, neither one's really traditional, but he prepared for the spider, I think. He had the Centaurs, he had a bunch of great weapons, he had hounds, and ultimately the Doom Divers plus really defensive geometry was able to kind of, counterplay that build and just take down those Centaurs with great weapons. So Black Orcs did good as always. The big ends, of course, were useful against, some of the Centaurs and just, plugging in wherever they're needed. That's what's so cool about Biggins. They're an okay frontline troop. I mean, 42 weapon strength and really good offensive stats. You can use them in the back as a defensive, anti-cav unit. I feel like they're kind of underrated, but yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And for Janet's army, Kazrak I feel is never good. On his chariot, I guess he does have some decent buffs, so he can get around and of course provide some pretty good play against Black Orcs, but I feel like Morker is just so much better. Summoning a group of Chaos Spawn to pressure my back line would have been really scary, and it's just, I can't seem to make Kazrak work. Maybe he has, but, I just have never had great success with Kazrak. The Beastcaster was cool. Flock of Doom did a ton of damage against my infantry. It was very essential at taking out the Black Orcs and the, whatever else I had there, Force Cup and Spider Rider, so I like that pick quite a bit. Throwing Axes, of course, are very, very good, and even, in any Greenskin matchup, I feel like Throwing Axes are good against Black Orcs. Just a kiting unit. They're good dual purpose in melee as well as range, and yeah, I like it. So yeah, very well played to JanetOnOccasion. Make sure to mosey on over to his YouTube channel. Like I said, there will be a link in the comment section below, and that's it for now. So you guys will be seeing the finals. I think I'm going to be playing against Jonton of Total Brohammer, so that'll be going up. Probably trying to get that game in the next week. My wrist pain has been acting up quite a bit lately, so might need to put a little bit of take a few days of rest. So anyways, well played again to Janet, and thanks to Shadow Online Gaming for hosting the tournament, and stay tuned for more tournament games. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.